Now, this mobster hitman supposedly killed 100 to 200 people. Whoa. It doesn't stop there. He even killed a kid and put him in a damn steel drum. When it comes to mobsters, Giovanni Brusca isn't your everyday thug. Nah, this guy was something entirely different. An absolute monster. Let's rewind a little bit. Brusca was born into the mafia family life in Sicily on February 20th, 1957. And I literally mean born into it. His father, Bernardo Brusca, was a notorious mafia boss. Talk about the family business, huh? Brusca was to follow in his father's footsteps, growing up on a code of silence, loyalty, and murder, of course. By the time he was 22, Giovanni was already, deep in. We're talking full-on mob boss mode. Running operations, calling hits, breaking legs, shooting people who disrespect the family, you know. Ever see a movie where there's a montage of a dude learning how to do bad stuff while he's making a bunch of money? Yeah, basically that. And honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg. Oh, I forgot to mention that Brusca's nickname was the Pig. Yes, his nickname is the Pig. Now you're probably wondering why. It was actually because he was pudgy and looked gross, and was also known for his brutality and greed. Charming guy, am I right? He became a member of the Corleonesi faction, which, by the way, was the most ruthless group in the mafia, led by the infamous mafia boss, Salvatore Toto Riina. I mean, seriously, these guys didn't flinch at killing someone just for looking at them wrong, taking, I'm walking here, to a whole new level. But in the world of organized crime, being a mobster isn't just about power or breaking legs. I mean, that's great and whatnot, but it's about making some goddamn statements. These dudes with Tommy guns would shoot the name of their gang into a wall, just so they could announce who robbed the bank. I mean, those kind of statements aren't too bad, right? So let's talk about what happened in 1983, when this man orchestrated the assassination of Judge Rocco Cinici, who had the bad idea of looking into the mafia. Without anyone seeing, he finds Cinici's car, and with not a care in the world for who else might, get in the car, he set it off to explode when he turned on the car. Cinici gets in like any other day. Bang! That car bomb killed Cinici and 3 others who had nothing to do with the mafia at all. Yeah, kind of delightful, wouldn't you agree, little boxhead? But his biggest statement of all came in 1992. Giovanni Falcone, a different guy than our main man Giovanni, by the way, was a man dedicated to bringing down the mafia. Pleasant idea. And was a hero to many who didn't want to live under the rule of the mafia, who I'm sure you can imagine was, most people. Falcone was kind of Brusca's archenemy. Brusca pulled off the murder of Falcone in a way straight out of an action movie. What did he do? He planted half a ton of explosives under a highway near Capaci, knowing exactly when Falcone's convoy would pass. He waited patiently for the lawyer to arrive, watching and waiting for his moment. The convoy got closer. Right as the car went over the marked spot, he smirked and pushed the detonator. Kaboom! The explosion was so massive, it created a crater and instantly killed Falcone. Not only that, but it killed his wife and his 3 bodyguards. Body parts laid all over the road, and Brusca ran off into the night. But wait, hold on, it doesn't stop there. Brusca did something else that was so disgusting it might get this video taken down. Yeah, it's that bad. So there was this mafia informant. Wait, for those who don't know, an informant is someone who basically snitches to the cops. Yeah, okay, so here's the backstory. In 1993, Brusca was responsible for kidnapping an 11-year-old Giuseppe Di Matteo. I hope I'm saying that right. The son of Santino Di Matteo. Yeah, so basically, Brusca and his men held this kid hostage, moving him from one safe house to another for over 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. The kid was a teenager by the time he was, well, we'll get into that. All in an attempt to force Santino to take back his statements against the mafia. It's kind of unclear what he was going to say about the mafia, but I'm sure it wasn't about the mafia being, good guys or anything, or about a parking ticket they missed. So then they proceed to unalive him after holding the kid for 2 years. But then yet, it somehow still gets worse. Giovanni took his body and literally, hold on, let me say this to you, dissolved it in acid. It was a clear message. Never betray the goddamn mafia. No one, not even Boxhead subscribers are safe. Subscribe. Okay, after orchestrating the murders of people like the lawyer from earlier, Giovanni Falcone, and the horrifying kidnapping and murder of the informant's son, Brusca became one of the authorities' most wanted men in Italy. Who would have guessed? So, like you would expect, the Italian police, for those who don't know, their wacko version of the FBI called the... Carabinieri. Think of them as sort of anti-mafia units who were all on high alert. Oh, and high alert they were. I mean, they were hunting him for years on end, following leads, intercepting communications, and piecing together any information they could find. Sounds like a movie, am I right? Well, the problem was there wasn't any evidence at all. He kept vanishing without a trace. Aside from the bodies Giovanni was leaving, that was it. Let's just say Brusca didn't exactly make it easy for them. So in his time, he was moving from hideout to hideout, never staying at one place for too long. And the mafia network was vast. And our main man, Giovanni Brusca, had plenty of loyalists willing to protect his dumbass. I mean, when you have that kind of power and fear is on your side, it's almost like you're untouchable. Now imagine that, a man constantly on the move, always looking over his shoulder. He wasn't just hiding in caves or abandoned buildings either. No. Brusca had access to safe houses equipped with all sorts of comforts that the piggy needed across Italy. He was really funded with this pig-like wealth. But even the most careful criminals make their mistakes, and usually make it into a box set video. The breakthrough in the hunt for Brusca came in kind of an ironic source. The authorities received a tip from someone who had grown tired of living under the mafia's shadow, and wanted the hell out. They wished to remain anonymous, and I would too. So here's what happened next. Well, the police acted really quick, setting up surveillance and preparing for a swift operation. Hold on though, box heads, they had to be careful. Our piggy Brusca was known to be heavily guarded, and any misstep on their end could end in a full-on shootout. So, on May 20th, 1996, the Italian authorities moved in on a safe house outside of Cannatello, a small town in Sicily, by the way. They approached the house. They saw him through his giant window in the backyard. There he was. Our guy Brusca was hiding with chip crumbs probably on his fat-ass belly, with his brother Vincenzo and some, bodyguards. Per usual. The police then surrounded the area, cutting off literally any possible escape route. It was a high-stakes operation. And not only did they have to move fast to catch Brusca, but they had to catch him off guard. The police stormed the house, guns drawn, go! Adrenaline pumping. They broke down the door and cleared the safe house room by room.
Clear! Box head, this is box head, clear, move!
Brusca and his men tried to resist and grab the guns to fight back, but they were quickly overpowered. Yeah, sounds just like Scarface without a grenade launcher, am I right? After years of evading capture, the pig was finally in custody. I guess he really porked this one up, huh? But wait, hold on, it doesn't stop there. Brusca's capture was more than just catching one guy. It was a gold mine of information. The authorities found documents, weapons, and other materials that provided valuable insights into the mafia's operations, like how these guys would dispose of bodies. And honestly, this was kind of the beginning of the end for the mafia, because ever since these arrests, they've never been as powerful. Oh yeah, remember how you were never supposed to betray the mafia? Well, Brusca eventually turned into an informant. He realized that cooperating with the authorities could reduce his sentence, which at first was going to be multiple life sentences, down to just a couple decades. And they provided some level of protection from the mafia's wrath. Yeah, the big bad wolf decided to squeal. I mean, wouldn't you if it meant that you could get out of jail one day? Remember, this is the same guy that killed a kid and put him in a damn steel drum. His decision to collaborate was a complete game changer. He sat around living comfortably in a nicer jail cell that they made more comfortable than the rest of the inmates. And in return, he offered details into the mafia's operations. So his cooperation led to the charging of Salvatore Totorina, the leader of their group we mentioned earlier, with the orchestrating of the murders, along with a bunch of low-level guys in the mafia. This significantly weakened the organization. But becoming a little tattletale wasn't a great thing either. Many Italians felt that his crimes were too awful to be forgiven, regardless of his cooperation. And Brusca's own life in prison was marked by isolation and constant threat. Oh, did you really think this had some sort of happy ending or something? They ended up releasing him in 2021. 2021, after many appeals and because of his cooperation, of course. Yeah, this dude right here is back on the street today. Let's just say I won't be seeing Sicily anytime soon. Alright, now let's talk about Richard Kuklinski, a guy so scary he had the nickname of the Iceman. Chilling, am I right? Yeah, my humor is just broken. Born on April 11th, 1935, in Jersey City, New Jersey, our guy Richard didn't have an easy start. His father, Stanley, was a violent alcoholic, and his mother, Anna, wasn't much better. She was strict and oftentimes abusive. Growing up in such a harsh environment shaped Richard into a tough and just angry young man. It was said his first kill was a bully at 13 years old. Now, all I gotta say is I wasn't killing nobody back when I was 13 years old. Imagine being a young boy trying to navigate life with a father who, slaps him very, very hard. And a mother who uses broom handles as weapons. That right there was Richard's whole childhood. And one day, after his father had a little bit too much to drink, he, this is just messed up, actually beat his own son to death and had his entire family lie about it to avoid getting in trouble. This was Richard's brother, by the way. Now let's fast forward to the 1950s. Richard is now a grown man, trying to make a living doing whatever would pay. Evidently, he was actually a truck driver in New Jersey. Come on, man, he was getting paid a little bit good. But the money wasn't good enough. He was bottling rage from his childhood. He started off with petty crimes, but soon enough, his violence got him working for dangerous people. He became the guy they would send in to collect money or settle disputes with a little bit of muscle. But his big break came when he started working as a hitman for the mafia. Well, working for the mafia is where he started to really make a name for himself. Now, why was our guy Richard called the Iceman? Great question. Richard got this nickname because he had a very unique way of hiding his crimes. He would freeze the bodies of his victims to confuse the police about the time of their death. Okay. Imagine putting leftovers in the freezer to keep them from spoiling. Richard did that with bodies, which obviously, like I mentioned before, made it hard for investigators to find out when a person was killed. One of his first known victims was George Mollyband. So here's how the story goes. Mollyband was trying to buy tapes off of Richard, but instead, he ended up in a 55-gallon oil drum near a chemical plant. Richard shot him 5 times and stuffed his body into the drum, but not before cutting the tendons in his leg to make him fit. Yucky, man. That's the type of stuff that, makes me squirm thinking about it. Despite his gruesome killings and job, I guess you could say, Richard lived a seemingly normal life. After a long, hard day of chopping up people and freezing their corpses, he'd sit down for a nice wine with his wife Barbara in the suburbs. Imagine a typical suburban dad, mowing the lawn, playing with his kids, and attending neighborhood barbecues. That was Richard. Or at least, that's what his family and neighbors thought he was. They had no clue about his side hustle. His wife noticed that he was always kind of like a bit off. Barbara knew Richard had a temper, but she didn't have a clue how much worse it got. She believed he was just a successful business guy. Isn't it kinda scary that you could live with someone and completely not know who they are? This is the type of stuff that makes me think that banging the secretary is fine. I might have to have a talk with my wife. Even when he'd leave the house in the middle of night, she didn't ask any questions. They lived by the don't ask, don't tell philosophy. Sounds like a great marriage. And because of this, Richard's list of victims grew over the years. There was Paul Hoffman, a pharmacist who hoped to make a quick buck by buying stolen street pharmacy items. I think you know what I mean by street pharmacy. And so Richard lured him into a garage and attacked him until he was, dead. And get this, the weapon? A tire iron. Yeah, a tire iron. Then there was Gary Smith, a member of the same gang who started talking about quitting. Richard, of course, feared that he might become an informant, so he poisoned him with cyanide-laced hamburgers. Boy, our guy Richard's a ham sandwich. Oh, he didn't just stop there. Another gang member, Daniel Deppner. Richard killed him in an apartment for a similar reason. This seems like a really dangerous line of work, huh? Well, anyway, Richard wrapped his body in garbage bags and dumped it in you guessed it, a wooded area. It was found by someone riding their bike and it was surrounded by vultures. One of his most notable victims was Louis Masgay, whose body was found in a park with a bullet hole in his head. Richard, of course, had frozen the body, and when it thawed, the police found icicles inside of the goddamn corpse, making determining the time of death very hard, of course. This trick right here earned him his very chilling nickname. Nope, not the time. By the mid-1980s, Richard's activities had caught the attention of law enforcement. Remember, this dude was affiliated with the mafia, a known killer, and all the authorities needed now was some sort of concrete evidence to slam the guy. So they set up a task force called Operation Iceman to catch him, which had members from all the alphabet boys. ATF, FBI. I'm sure they even had called the CIA, who were probably too busy torturing the homeless people with LSD. Yeah, that's a true story too. Alright, so here comes Dominique Palifrone, an ATF agent who went undercover to befriend Richard. Yeah, this guy had to play house and pretend to be this guy's friend. For 18 months, Palifrone posed as a fellow hitman named Dominique Provenzano. He gained Richard's trust and got him to talk about his methods and his murders. Richard even demonstrated how he used cyanide to kill his targets. A smiling and nodding, approving friend, Palifrone listened to everything while he recorded actually everything. For personal use, of course. Damn, I wish I had that video. In December 1986, Richard was ready to do another hit. But he got suspicious when the cyanide Palifrone gave him didn't work on a stray dog that he tested on. This dude was willing to test poison on a goddamn dog. The only thing that saved the dog was the fact that the cops didn't give him real cyanide. Damn, man. Alright, people's one thing, but dogs, come on, bro. Well, Richard called off the hit and went home, but it was too late. The police had enough evidence on him. Ha! Got him, Palifrone probably said. Time to move in. The cops set up a roadblock to catch him on December 17th, 1986. And as his car approached, the cops were all nervous. What if he shot back? Could any of them be next? Sweating nervously, they waited for him to get closer. Now! Sirens blared and lights flashed, and the Iceman stopped the car in shock. Iceman, get out of the vehicle and put your hands on top of the car. And, freeze. God damn it, Jerry. Anyways, Richard's trial began in 1987. And thanks to the undercover operation, there was plenty of evidence to convict him. Witnesses who had seen him being suspicious many times, possibly when he was hiding the bodies, decided to take the stand and testify against him. And eventually, the jury found him guilty of 5 murders, 4 of which he was actually convicted for. I guess the last one they didn't have enough evidence for the 5th. He was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole until he was over 100 years old, and we're actually going to get to that. But the story didn't end there. Richard continued to claim that he had killed many more people, anywhere from 100 all the way up to 200. Let's take a closer look at some of Richard's more insane claims. He said that he had killed Jimmy Hoffa, the former Teamsters Union president who vanished without a trace in 1975. But yeah, according to Richard, he was a part of the team that kidnapped him, where he then said he killed him and then disposed of his body in a steel drum. The drum, he claimed, was later compacted and sold as scrap metal to Japan. What they did with that after, I have no idea. However, experts were a little bit skeptical. They found no evidence to support Richard's story. An FBI agent who worked on the Hoffa case said that Richard was never a suspect. It just seemed like Richard enjoyed adding extra flair to his tales, making himself sound more dangerous and connected than he, really was. Another wild claim was that Richard fed a victim to rats in a Pennsylvania cave. He said he used to dump bodies in caves and then let the rats, do the rest. However, when investigators went to go check out these caves, they found not a single human remain or any evidence of flesh-eating rats. I think our guy Richard thinks he was living in a movie. While in prison, Richard became somewhat of a celebrity. He gave interviews to writers, criminologists, and TV producers. He was featured in several HBO documentaries where he shared details about his life and crimes. But eventually, Richard's health began to become a massive problem. In October 2005, he was diagnosed with a rare disease and was then transferred to a hospital. Despite a do not resuscitate order signed by his damn wife, which, hold on, imagine your wife signing that. Richard asked his doctors to revive him if he ever went into cardiac arrest. But on March 5th, 2006, at the age of 70, Richard Kuklinski, the Iceman, died of heart disease. I hope they cremated him. That would have really thawed him out. Alright, now let's talk about Alexander Solonik, who was one of the most infamous hitmen in Russian history. He may have killed up to 200 people, and I'm seriously not even joking about that. But how does a dude go from your average Joe to a full-blown commie John Wick? Let's rewind a little bit. Alexander Solonik was born on October 16th, 1960, in Kurgan, a city in the Soviet Union. For those that don't know, that was what Russia was called before it was Russia. Growing up, he seemed like any other kid, but he had a slightly bad habit of getting into trouble. He was always caught fighting or stealing packs of gum. I mean, his crimes were about to escalate real damn quick. After finishing school, he joined the Soviet army where he got lots of training in guns and even some martial arts. Or to put it really simply, he could shoot his guns well and he could punch hard. This training made him incredibly skilled and prepared him for a life that would make him very dangerous. After leaving the army, Solonik tried to have a normal life. He worked as a firefighter and then as a police officer. But his temper and using violence to solve problems got him into a lot of trouble. Oh no, seriously, he was fired from being a firefighter and a police officer. So, with no job, he used his military skills to turn to crime. Sounds like a freaking action movie to me. He got his start with some petty crimes, gaining some connections in the crime world. But Solonik's big break came when he was introduced to just who he needed. The goddamn Russian mafia who he started working for. His reputation grew so fast because he was one, efficient and ruthless. We like the way you work, kid. Take care of these guys for us and you'll be made a man. Anything for you, comrade. I don't think that's what the Russians sound like, but who knows. Anyways, he took one job after the next, and he wasn't just cleaning toilets or sweeping floors. He was killing off all of his clients' rivals. Guy going to work, bang, sniper shot. Dude scraped a mafia car, shot dead in an alley. I mean, seriously, no one was safe. He became known as one of the most dangerous hitmen in Russia, earning the nicknames Sasha the Macedonian and Alexander the Great. He was infamous for his ability to eliminate targets in broad daylight without ever getting caught. Isn't that insane? Imagine you're just walking through a park in broad daylight and bang! Shot dead and the guy just walks away. Now get this, out of all the things the authorities could have got him for, in the early 1990s, Solonik was actually arrested for illegal possession of firearms. Go figure. And of course, other crimes. He was placed in, oh, good lord, what does this say? Matroshkaya Tishina. And of course, I butchered that, but it was one of the most secure prisons in Russia. So everyone's safe now, right? Wrong. Solonik wasn't just someone who could be easily confined. You're not gonna believe this one. On July 5th, 1995, he pulled off an escape that would seriously make Houdini proud. Solonik managed to break out of prison, climbing the walls and escaping the guards. His escape was so daring and well executed that it left authorities stunned and even embarrassed. And get this, they still don't know how he did it. The main theory is that he bribed a guard to give him some tools to get out of his cell. They know he climbed the walls, so maybe his inside help gave him the rope or something, I don't know. But still, till this day, nothing was found. After his escape, Solonik fled to Greece, where he continued his criminal life. Despite being on the run, Solonik continued to take assassination contracts, working for various criminal organizations. I mean, hey, this guy was passed around. He was more so known for his high-profile hits, including the murders of prominent Russian mob bosses. Despite his success, if you can even call it that, Solonik's life of running couldn't last forever. The authorities both in Russia and internationally were determined to catch this man. And on February 2nd, 1997, his body was found in a rented villa in Athens, Greece. He had been strangled to death. And the best part is no one knows what happened. It was widely believed that Solonik was killed by criminals on orders from the Russian mafia, who saw him as too much of a threat after he killed many of their own guys. Alright, now let's talk about Roy DeMeo. Roy was one of the most feared and ruthless members of the Gambino crime family. If you don't know who that is, just imagine the guys John Wick goes after. Well, this one was no spy, but he was one of the worst hitmen to ever live. His name was Roy Albert DeMeo, born on September 7th, 1940, in Brooklyn, New York. He grew up in a tough neighborhood where survival often meant getting his hands a little bit dirty. Or bloody, kinda depends on the day. As a young man, Roy was smart, but he chose a different path. Instead of going to college or getting a regular job, he got involved in the great world of crime. And Roy's choices led him straight into the arms of the mafia. Okay, this part is really cool. Like, I'm actually kind of giddy, like, waiting to tell you this. This mafia boss was in the same high school graduating class as Bernie Sanders. I'm serious. These two could have really hung out together. Anyways, in the 1960s, Roy started out as a loan shark, lending money at high interest rates to people who were down on their luck. And yeah, the interest rates from mobsters usually involved broken legs if not paid. And oh guys, he did way more than just breaking legs. But Roy wasn't just about making money. He was more about making a name for himself. His use of violence to collect debt actually got the attention of higher-ups in that Gambino family we talked about earlier. Roy moved up the ranks, building a crew of loyal followers, who were, you guessed it, just as awful. They became known as the DeMeo crew. Yeah, really creative. Why can't these guys, ever call themselves something cool? They just sound like aggressive plumbers. Anyways, they operated out of a bar in Brooklyn called the Gemini Lounge. Think of that place in SpongeBob where the fish eats nails for breakfast without any milk. That was basically the Gemini Lounge. The DeMeo crew became famous for their method of disposing bodies, known as the Gemini method. Okay. Here's how it worked. They would lure their victim into the back room of the lounge, where one of the crew would shoot them in the head with a silenced pistol. Another crew member would then immediately wrap the victim's head in a towel to, prevent the blood from spilling everywhere. Just less evidence to clean up. Well, hold on, it gets worse. Then they would drain the body of blood in a bathtub and then dismember it, wrapping up the dismembered parts of the human in plastic bags. Wait, guys, was the show Dexter based on the DeMeo crew? Food for thought, as they would say. Anyways, they would then dump the remains in various locations around Brooklyn. And by the way, when it came to his hits, Roy DeMeo didn't hesitate to kill, whether it was to settle a score, send a message, or eliminate a potential threat. He and his crew were responsible for over 100 murders, with some estimates even going as high as 200. And let's actually get into some of the murders. One of Roy's early victims was a car thief who had made the mistake of stealing from the mafia. Yeah, not a great idea. Well, Roy took him to the Gemini Lounge and brought him to the back with promises of dancers and probably that blowy blow. But instead got a blow right to his head. Now you're probably wondering, how could he have been doing all of this with no one suspecting a damn thing? Well, Roy lived a normal life at home. He was a family man with wife and kids, little box heads running around, living in a comfortable suburban home on Long Island. Roy's work for the Gambinos wasn't just murder, but also stealing cars, street pharmacy trafficking, and he even got involved in the illegal Mia Khalifa type adult business. In the 1980s, the FBI and other law enforcement agencies began cracking down on the mafia. They started building cases against mobsters, and Roy DeMeo was high up on their list. The large number of murders he was involved in made him a prime target for the cops. But it wasn't just the police that Roy had to be worried about. Within the mafia, the bosses were getting nervous about how much attention Roy's crew, was attracting. They feared he might flip and become an informant to save himself and his crew before he got caught. So you can probably guess what happened. In 1983, Roy DeMeo's luck ran out. The Gambino family decided he was too much of a risk and needed to, eliminate the target. On January 10th, 1983, Roy went to meet up with some of his crew members, supposedly for a, business meeting. But this meeting was actually a setup. Hey buddy, old Roy. Hey, I'm walking here. Bang, bang, bang. No, I'm walking here. You spaghettied your last meatball sucker. And before you start commenting, my uncle's hamster is Italian and I'm allowed to do that accent for anyone who was thinking to comment just now. Okay, how does the story end? Well, after he had, spaghettied his last meatball, he obviously wasn't coming home. His family then reported him missing about 10 days later. Get this though, Roy's body was found in the trunk of his own car, and it's been sitting there for over a week. The mobsters who took it parked it in the lot of a marina near his damn home. And yeah, he'd been shot multiple times in the head. Cops are probably looking at the body in the trunk. Doesn't feel good, eh? Roy's dead body obviously doesn't respond. Alright. God damn it, Jerry. Anyways, if you want to hear about more people dying, click this video right here where I talk about how each assassinated president was actually killed. It's a really good video, man. Go click it. Why are you still here? Click the video! Ooh, don't make me put ya in the box. And don't forget to subscribe. Oh my god, that was hideous.